won't ever, ever, ever give up the fight.
In the future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. You are tuned into and turned on to Dr. Judy WTF. I am your host, Walt Lusk, as usual. And yes, we are streaming live for those of you who want to watch us on ubnradio.com on Channel 2, the Insight Station. Or you can pull our podcasts on Stitcher or iTunes. And this is the Dr. Judy WTF show. And please don't get ahead of me. It's What the Freud. And, of course, later in the show, we will be shrinking that tune. Judy, do you realize we have survived and lasted and done one whole year here on the network and done the show?
You mean it's time for the paradigm shift? We've been through two?
Well, yeah, at least I don't know about through or two.
Oh, yeah, we're going through. Today we're going through.
Today we're going through, and we'll be shrinking that tune, and it's actually one we did before, but it's a very popular song, still one of Judy's favorites. It's called Because of You, but today it's not called Because of You. It's called Because of You.
Yes, I like the emphasis, Walt.
You will find out later in the show. We are a call-in show, although we're having a call-in this week, and our number is area code 323-843-2826. You think I know it by now. 323-843-2826. And we are continuing our series, probably this week and definitely next, of Maria, our call-in patient, who we've had the last 2 weeks on, and she's had some incredible insights, and actually some of the comments of those of you that are listening, and we thank you so much for doing so, has been amazingly positive.
So with that, I want to start with the preface of my book. I'm actually writing it. One of these days it will be out, and I'm getting closer and closer. It's just that I'm taking it so seriously. So here is what I want you to know, that we are born perfect and connected. We are then disconnected from and made imperfect. We can become connected and complete again. And you can become connected and complete again. And it is because of you that you can paradigm shift your life, because as we've been talking about all along, we are not the cause of part one of our lives.
No, we're not.
And we can't possibly be, because childhood is a hostage situation.
Absolutely.
And in good ways and not so good ways. And when we're blessed to be with parents who deliver the goods of unconditional love in the form of attunement, skin contact, eye contact, breastfeeding, consistency, and really putting us first, creating an environment of safety for us. When we're lucky enough to have fathers who can be there for the mothers and nurture the nurturer, when we're fortunate enough to have a family system that's really solid and of a real support to the infant coming into the world, then we're off to the start of really great mental health. And as some of you have been following, for those of you who've been following the show, that you know that much of what I talk about is based on attachment theory, and that we are really hurt and wounded when we are disconnected from, and when we disconnect from our mothers or primary caregivers. It's just not a pretty picture. So just a little background on the mind map for those of you watching the show for the first time. Can you put that mind map up?
I can. If you're listening, you can go to www.drjudywtf.com.
Thank you.
And there's the mind map. It's a 9-panel system Dr. Judy developed over 12 years ago, and based upon some recent developments, it is becoming a lot more popular.
Yeah, today I had the pleasure of talking to a young woman by the name of Dana. Hope you're listening, Dana, and thank you
Dana.
for following us. And she interviewed me for a good hour and some, and she will have a 3-part article out at anxiety.org. So please go to anxiety.org. It's the fastest growing website for information on anxiety, chock full of information. And again, really, really appreciate that interview, Dana. I look forward to seeing the
We're very
article.
anxious to hear and read the article, and we might just have to have you on air.
Oh, that would be incredible.
You bet.
And yes, you're invited. If you're listening,
Yes,
you're
indeed.
invited.
Cordially invited.
So
And we're looking for sponsors, too, and seeking
Always.
sponsors. Yes, indeed.
So going back to the mind map, the mind map is a matrix of information, and each panel I use metaphorically to describe a process. And if you look at the top row, it's the from row. It's from the problem. And itching. From the problem means that when we have a wound of childhood, when there's a disconnection from the primary caregiver, what happens is that it blocks our potential to grow, and it also leaves a psychological scar on us, which then creates a reaction in the infant, a primal reaction in the infant, which has to do with the lack of attunement, the lack of ability to self-soothe, and then travels into panel number 3, which is an actual encoding of that experience into the fiber of the person's being. And I treat people with very severe negative core beliefs,
panel 3 out.
from worthlessness to worthlessness would be probably the bottom of
I'm not
of our-
worthy. I'm
Right.
not worth it. Maria's core belief was I'm not important.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's a lot more folks than I suspected. You're not important, so you always give preferential treatment to everybody else but yourself. And we've talked about being loyal to yourself in life, as opposed to loyal to everybody else but yourself. So I know it's not easy.
And although our parents don't mean to necessarily injure us, how they treat us affects the fiber of our being. So when we incorporate a negative core belief into the fiber of our being, what happens is that other people will trip up this negative core belief. We will see life through the lens of this core belief, and we will fall quickly into chaos and then defend against the chaos with a slew of defense mechanisms, including overeating, alcoholism, other forms of drug use, shopping, porn. I mean, the list is
Gambling.
endless. And then these defense mechanisms, although they are used to protect ourselves, actually blow up on us. They either implode or they end up exploding, and the showdown is not pretty. So
Never
today
is.
is the culmination of our work, and it's a very important session because we're going to introduce the concept of letting the poison out. I've been talking about letting the poison out all along. So, Walt, do you want to read a little bit
Yeah,
from
this is
the
an
book?
excerpt of Judy's book. It is, which chapter is this? Chapter 6? Chapter 6, entitled Breakdown, Breakthrough. But perhaps the greatest reason that we fear confronting cause is that we absolutely are terrified of encountering the possibility that our parents didn't actually love us at all, at least not in the way that we needed them to. The face of this nightmare as being true would be to confess to ourselves that we are not worthy of even being alive, and that somehow our very existence is sort of a cosmic mistake, and that it's too unbelievable for us to confront even the possibility of this. It's the witch of all witches. So instead of ripping off the Band-Aid in one shot, we allow this fear of perceived oblivion to slowly poison and bleed us to death with habitual, intolerable, daily suffering. All too often we do this for the better part of our lives. We all have a destiny, a purpose, and a responsibility in our lives to live up to the greatest vision of ourselves that we can be. It is because of this God-given task that we not only need to try to confront cause for our greatest healing, we simply must confront it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, I want to reiterate, letting the poison out doesn't mean that we're blaming, shaming, criticizing our parents. It doesn't mean that we're throwing them under the bus. What it means that we need a place to detox all of these infiltrations that have really filtered into the fiber of our being and have created in us a lot of havoc, a lot of chaos, and the core belief that we're not good enough, we're not important enough, and so on. So by confronting cause, what I mean is you don't call up your mother, you don't call up your father and say, a bunch of expletives. What you do is you handle it therapeutically, because the reason for that is that if you just simply go right to your cause, your primary caregivers, chances are that they're too injured to handle it, that since they're the ones that consciously or unconsciously perpetrated these wounds, they themselves don't know how to handle it, certainly not therapeutically. So today we are going to have an opportunity to work directly with taking the poison out, or at least beginning to show you how this is done, and to start with the damage list, because we always have to start with the damage list and acknowledge how it is that our lives went sideways,
how it's been affected and impacted.
Right, exactly.
Infected.
Thank you. Okay. So as we often say on our show, don't implode, don't explode.
Unload.
Wow, you know the rap.
Yeah.
So the unload part is the express, and we're expressing the poison so that it doesn't turn gangrene and it doesn't stay within and continue to cause symptoms. And this is a very bold session. It is a session that I prepare my patients to have for very many sessions. So it's not something that you just kind of casually back into, so to speak. You've got to really move with the flow of the from through to, and the mind map gives people a kind of a containment of organization of where the problem came from, and an understanding that they are not the cause of part one of their lives, and that in order to paradigm shift, we can't just paradigm shift and forgive. We have to let the poison out before we can forgive.
Well, we have to let the bad out before we can replace it with something better.
Right. It's a very Zen thing. It's like empty out, right, Walt? We have to empty out before we can let in the fresh and the new. The
vessel can only hold we can only hold so much.
That's right.
Right, and we want to make sure we replace it with something that's going to last and isn't worse than what we let go.
Absolutely.
So, shall we see if we can get Maria on the phone?
Yeah.
Okay, see if I can call her. See if she answers. It's dialing. It's ringing. One ringy dingy.
Hi, please leave me a message.
She's probably calling in.
Well,
I think she's supposed to call in.
She is, but I just called the number she called from us before. So
okay.
All
so
right.
let her have the opportunity to call in, and in the meantime, we're going to talk about the buildup of the poison. Okay, we've had many shows where we spoke about implosions and explosions, and on the one end of the spectrum is the implosion, and the implosion turns up as symptoms of depression and anxiety, and symptoms that really act inward, so to speak. So there's an action inward. The explosions are actions outward, where you project on other people and you lay into them because the poison is so overwhelming that you need to put it somewhere. So the projection process is a very common way that people try to get rid of the poison. And I believe last time I talked about projective identification, which is a really nasty way of projecting your poison into another person.
And here we are.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, you're on the air. Thanks for calling.
Hi. My answering service just turned on, so.
No problem. We're glad you're here.
Hey,
Hi.
Good evening. Thanks for calling, Maria.
I'm watching you as I'm talking to you, which is kind of strange.
Well, thank you, but could you at least turn the volume down? You can still watch
exactly.
us.
I just did.
Even though there's no delay. It's kind
Sorry,
of,
it was scary to hear part of my answering service. Strange.
We got a little scared, but I was confident that you'd call in.
Yeah. No, I was calling. It just went right to voicemail, I guess, when you picked it up. So anyway, hi.
Hi, welcome back.
Thank you. I was following what you were saying, so about the poison and all of
Are
that.
are you
So,
ready?
I don't know. I'm a little nervous.
Okay,
It's
well,
really just the three of us here, so don't worry.
yeah,
Yeah,
3 of us and
okay.
all our listeners. That's all.
Right.
And just remember, Maria, that we're going to continue the process off air, and that we're going to have an opportunity to really explore this in depth. And so I just appreciate that you're here to model a process that I think is very crucial and something that is not commonly practiced in the field of psychology. And what's not commonly practiced is really confronting cause. And again, you're not going to be calling anybody in your family to confront your particular cause. You will be using me to allow yourself to confront the cause through the process of using me, if you will.
Does that mean you're going to take the heat?
I'm taking the hit. I'm taking the
you're gonna
heat.
take the heat and the hit.
Right. If you can't take the hit and the heat, right? Okay. So I'm taking the hit. I'm taking the heat. We all know that you are not the cause of part 1 of your life.
Absolutely
We
not.
all know that the symptoms that you've been presenting to us have a source. Okay. And the source is definitely not you. And so, last time we spoke, first of all, I want to just generally know, how are you doing? How are you processing all this information?
A lot of up and down. There's been a lot going on.
Okay.
So, yeah.
It's kind of like drinking from a fire hose.
Really?
There's definitely a lot that is in my face right now.
Okay.
On all fronts. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Do you want to share a little bit about how this information is impacting you, both the negative and positive ways? I'm really interested to know if you're able to take it in, if the information is overwhelming to you. Just talk a little bit about that, please.
The first 2 weeks, I felt a surge of energy after we did our sessions. And then I kind of hit a wall. And I realized, even after we spoke the other day, a lot more came up around the age between 3 and 4. I don't really remember that much from pre-3.
Yeah.
But
Not
between
many
3 and
people
4,
do. Okay.
I had even more memories come forward, and there was a lot of kind of abusive behavior. Pretty intense, in addition to being sent away for a month. That was kind of benign. There was another incident where I played with my mother's hairpiece, and when she discovered it, she dragged me through the house and cut a big chunk of my hair and locked me in the bathroom and turned off the light.
Wow.
Then, I put my hand on the stove and burned both of my hands. This was also in response to her getting sick.
Wait, I'm sorry. Back up for a moment. You put your own hands on the stove?
Yes, both of them.
Right after this incident?
No, it wasn't right after that incident. I think it was actually before that incident, so I may have been a little bit younger.
Okay.
And then I also, in that same period, stood on a swing when I was with my father, one of the rare times that he was at home, and I fell off the swing, and the swing nearly took off my eye because he was reading, he wasn't paying attention. So obviously what's come forward is how starved I was for attention and connection. And I think there was very little of that left over for me.
Okay, go back for...
when-
Yes, go ahead.
Except when I was showered with adoration because I was being displayed like a little doll, displayed.
And to make them look good.
And I just want to say a couple things about the display. I work a lot with people who come from extreme narcissistic parents, and what they're taught is that who they're what they're doing is more important than their being. And this is a very, very dangerous message. And so for those of you listening, you can hear in this situation Maria being displayed, and her performances were of more value than her safety, obviously, and her emotional well-being. And I want to go back to putting your hands on the stove. Was this something that you intentionally did? You actually put your hand on the stove as an intention? Do you remember?
I remember they had those solid stoves. They were solid plates.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember getting out of bed and turning on the stove and then putting both my hands on it. My mother had been sick with tuberculosis,
Mm-hmm.
I think around that time.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of chaos in the house, and my
Okay.
father was in and out.
And what did they do after you put your hands on the stove?
My father put butter,
Okay.
the opposite of what you're supposed to do for a burn.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um,
Very European. Butter for everything.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And, again,
I grew
was
up
being-
with butter too, so I'm Eastern
You did.
European, so I know
Okay.
about butter. Okay.
So, it was, I was being naughty. I was always a nuisance. That was part of my
Okay, so
family.
stop right there. I want everybody to really listen to this. I was being naughty. I was a nuisance. So who does the child blame? Do you hear that?
Itself.
That's
Yeah.
right. And this is where things go sideways. It's always I was wrong. I was bad. And remembering that childhood is a hostage situation. We cannot bite the hand that feeds us. It's just not going to work out.
And the irony is I actually thought I've healed a lot of this work.
Mm-hmm.
I've really moved way beyond it because I spent so many years in conventional therapy talking about things. But
Okay.
I'm faced with a mother who is old and cantankerous, who I'm now caring for,
Okay.
who is just as mean and unkind at every drop of a hat. It's
Okay.
almost as though she can't hurt me enough. And I, again, have a hard time getting upset about it. I mean, I used to get very upset about it and feel it in my body, but I don't do that anymore. I'm more detached, but at the same time, I don't know where to put those feelings because she's old and she needs care. And again, I feel a hostage to these unresolved feelings.
Yes,
So
and
it's
now
like connecting the dots,
okay, so you're really getting to the core of it, because what you're saying is that you have no place to put these feelings. You certainly can't put it on poor little old mommy who is now very sickly and weak, and she herself is regressing probably into childlike states. So how horrible for you to feel anything mean and bad and anything in the in the column of negative toward your aging mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And how dare you feel anything toward her when you're a child, because going back to the point, you're in a hostage situation and you cannot really confront her because of what value is that. It sounds like she's not going to hear you anyway. So what do you do to be heard? What do? You act out, and you take your hands and you actually turn the stove on, which is a very conscious act. It's not like you went over there and accidentally burned yourself. You went over there, you put your hands on the stove, and why do you think you did that?
I saw in these things are coming to me in pieces. I had completely forgotten about this one the first time I did this process. And so it just is so obvious to me how desperately I was crying out for help
And
for
attention. Yep.
Yeah.
So you're, yes.
And to be addressed. And prior to that, I was just this infant and didn't have any thing to say, but as soon as I was old enough, and I was also very hyperactive as a child, talking about anxiety, as you were, I suffered from a great deal of anxiety. I was never able to sit still. If I was playing in my room, my mother would come in and scream at me because my room was a mess, like out of the blue. So there was no safe place. There was no corner to go to where I felt safe. So I was always vigilant of what was coming up behind me, what was going to happen next.
And we spoke about this a little bit, and I did want to bring up the point that you, as a healer and a person involved in spirituality and having access to a lot of information in the field of psychology, have blamed yourself for years for not having the ability to cure yourself.
Well, feeling a great deal of anxiety in recent years around the opportunities that I've missed. In other words, there were opportunities that came my way. There was an opportunity in my marriage, the failed marriage. It's been a progression of me sinking once again into a place of questioning whether I have the ability to overcome this peace, and not wanting to create, I'm having to recreate my life all over again, and not wanting to recreate what I created in the past out of my drive, my will, my fear, my needs.
Yes.
It's a whole, it needs to come from a different place. It needs to come from an integrated place. It needs to come from all of me.
Yes.
And I find myself at times feeling this overwhelming sense of paralysis, not only with the spiritual movement and the people that I've known that a lot of them have come to certain successes in their life, or written books, or found a way to take their wound and make it into their catalyst.
Yes.
To what's going on in the world and all the overwhelming things that we talked about just the state of affairs with weather changes and wars and drones and all kinds of things. So it's all perfect timing.
Yes.
But I'm sort of floundering in the midst of all of this.
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about is the theme of healing, and the theme of relationships as being a very powerful healing element. And it was supposed to start out well, wasn't it? It was supposed to start out as an amazing relationship between mother and infant and father and infant, and our caregivers were supposed to be our pillars. They were supposed to be our safety zones. And in your case, that didn't quite happen. And so you had to use another language to communicate, and you had to use a harsh language to get attention, such as putting your hands on the stove or acting out or taking your mother's wig and dragging it around. And then in that case, what happened? You got punished for it, didn't you? So the message was lost, which is, Mom, give me some attention.
Oh, the other thing was that I didn't say, actually it was my mother who dragged me around. I didn't drag her wig around. I put it very quickly back. But I was left alone at age 4 while they went to dinner.
At age 4.
Wow, that's safe.
Right.
And they would say, as though I could tell time, when the big hand goes here and the little hand goes there, we'll be home. So
right.
as
Wow.
soon as they left, I bounced from the bed to the dresser and jumped back and forth, and then I got tired of that, and then I went and played with the hairpiece. And then I thought the time was up and they were coming home, and suddenly I raced in a panic, to put this hairpiece away, and there were 2 strands of hair sticking out of the drawer.
Wow.
And that's what she found, because my mother was also a perfectionist. It was like living with Mommy Dearest.
So listen to the system. For those of you who are listening, the system is let's put on her some really, really harsh, unrealistic expectations, which is to contain herself while we're out to dinner.
At age 4.
Okay, at age 4, and manage to self-soothe, which we can't really do that well at age 4, not certainly not for that period of time. And as we know, children have no concept of time anyway. So what are you supposed to do with yourself?
Many adults don't either.
Yeah, I mean, right. So what are you supposed to do with yourself? You're trying to occupy yourself. You're trying to kill time, so to speak. And so they're putting you in an inappropriate, dangerous system. And then when you try to cope as best you can with that system, they come home and punish you for your coping skills. So does that make sense to you?
You didn't burn the house down. I mean, come on.
I'm surprised I didn't jump out the window. By the grace of God.
Yes,
you know?
and definitely too. Folks, you're listening to Dr. Judy WTF, and we are in session 3 with our patient Maria, and we are diving into some really serious issues here, but we didn't do a station ID here at the bottom of the hour. So thanks for listening and tuning in.
So to continue what we're going to do with these feelings. Now, Maria, you know that you couldn't do anything with these feelings other than act out this way and act out that way, and that didn't work because you got punished and you didn't receive the empathy that you were hoping for. Maybe a little butter, that was about it. And that's not empathy, right? Even if it's margarine and I don't know, you know. Better than butter, whatever. It's not better. It doesn't make it better.
Absolutely not.
So what's going to make it better? Okay, so we've got to start somewhere, and obviously, I hope it's obvious to you now that there's a lot of unexpressed feelings toward cause, meaning unexpressed feelings toward mother and father. And now that you're caretaking your aging mother, it would be not therapeutic to load her with the damage list and to load her with the feelings that you're going to express, or at least begin to express here today on the show. And the main reason it's not appropriate is not because we necessarily want to spare her, but because she doesn't know how to respond therapeutically and make that connection and actually start healing the wound of disconnect. So if you will, please, could you just, I asked you to do a bit of a damage list, and certainly we've heard a lot of the damage already. Can you just maybe say 3 or 4 or 5 things on that damage list that we're going to address today in the remainder of this the show?
Okay. I was in the way.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I wasn't clear about. Am I saying this? You did this to me. You did that.
We're gonna get to it, but right now the damage list is things like, for example, that you chose people into your life that may not have been helpful to you, relationships, damage list of being ADHD, damage list of having this extreme anxiety, damage list.
I felt like a nuisance.
Okay.
I didn't know how to contain what was going on inside of my body, how to release those feelings.
Okay.
It was toxic, and I felt it intensely in my body. In fact, most of the time, whenever I would get to be with my mother, I couldn't stay with her for more than 24 hours or more than a day, really, because I would start to feel this intense anxiety.
Okay.
Boiling up.
Okay, so stop right there, okay? And I just want to begin a process that we're going to continue tomorrow, a process called Because of You. And for those of you listening, this is a therapeutic intervention that I'm sharing with you for the first time. It's something that is not commonly used in practice. I find it immensely therapeutic. Again, it takes many sessions to get here, but I just want to demo a little bit of it. And perhaps, Maria, you're comfortable enough to begin by saying, This is to let the poison out. Again, I repeat this because I'm really careful about how I want this material to go out there in the world. This is not about blaming. It's not about shaming. It's not about criticizing your parent. It's really about healing yourself and letting the poison out. So at this point, it has little to do with what you say to your mother, if at all, and it has everything to do with your taking all of this pent-up poison and releasing it. So I'm the bullseye. I'm your mother's spirit. I'm the one sitting in place of your mother right now because she certainly can't handle it. So you're talking to me, Maria, and I'm the spirit of your mother. So you can begin to speak from the lens of Mom, because of you. And go ahead and say a couple of things about that.
Mom, because of you, I blame myself for everything that's gone wrong in my life. Because of you, I have felt a great deal of anxiety. Because of you, I feel a tremendous amount of shame.
Mm-hmm.
Because of you, I have a hard time letting love in. Just keep going.
Oh, thank you. We're going to continue.
You're doing incredibly well.
Really, and so I just wanted to stop there. We're going to continue this, but I just wanted to say, Maria, thank you so much for sharing your feelings with me, and we will continue to let the poison out, and the pathway to really make a shift in that core belief is to really understand that the damage never ever came from you, was always sourced from cause, and that the pathway to healing is to release these feelings that were never safe to do in the context of your childhood. So we're going to continue tomorrow, Maria, and I really appreciate it. Just one moment of what was that like for you to say those 3 or 4 things?
It feels real, but it feels like very tempered for the purpose of this process here.
Okay,
right
so
now.
we're not going to temper it tomorrow. So I just wanted to kind of get into it a little bit so that other people can understand the process a little bit deeper. And we're not tempering it tomorrow. We're going to go all out so that you can release as much as you need to start exorcising these poisons and to start clearing the new template so that you can actually begin to restructure yourself in a healthy way. So I know we're almost out of time. Is that right? We have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Energetically, because I'm very aware of it spiritually,
Okay.
to do it to another person is a little bit, could one get the same benefit of doing it onto a page and releasing it by writing it out?
I don't think so, because I think that there's something about human beings connecting. I mean, after all, what's the opposite of disconnect? Disconnect. So when you're in a relationship, albeit we're in a therapeutic relationship, I think that relationships have the potential to heal. I believe that connecting with another human being and allowing that person to take in your feelings and really connect with your feelings, I think it's a huge part of the process. I find that to be so in my practice. I don't think it's enough to make a list of the because of yous and because of yous, because the main aspect that is needed in this process is is empathy. How do you get empathy off of a page?
Right.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
So it's not just about releasing anger. There's a process that I learned about free-form writing, and then you burn it. So you release that energy. So you're not, and you don't reread it. You don't look at it again. But for the purpose of this, it's better to do it by speaking it.
I think so, and there are a lot of pathways to healing, and I'm not going to discount any of them, and certainly putting it onto paper and burning it and releasing it is one way. I've found that this is a very, very effective method because it's human to human, and the disconnect started from a disconnect from a human to human. So I think that the connection between a human to human is really essential. So that's why I do it that way.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that came forward, I heard you say something about having this kind of breakthrough, breakdown, breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've had various little breakdowns throughout my life rather
Okay.
than one big breakdown. I think the fear has always been that I would have a breakdown, so to speak.
Right, and the reason I call this particular part of the process breakdown or breakthrough is because for me it's the same thing. It's a therapeutic breaking down of the parts, isn't it? So that we can undo the pathology and undo the negative core belief and many other side core beliefs that exist, so that eventually you can release this, really release this, and speak the truth, because it is certainly the truth that heals. Martin Luther King had a very good point. The truth will set you free. So to get out of this mental jail, this mental hell, you need to speak the truth, and you were never able to speak the truth to your parents. So with that, we're going to end because I know we still have the Shrink That Tune to do.
We've got a couple more minutes if you want to keep going.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 3 more minutes, so we have to do three.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Walt has drilled into me a core belief that the clock is a tyrant. so I'm you know, there I am. Okay, so you still have a couple of minutes. And so I wanted to ask you, what do you think of what I'm saying?
I agree with you. I think
Okay.
it's very powerful to be able to get in touch with those feelings in the moment, so that they get reactivated and allow them to be released, so that you can understand, that it's not going to cause me to have a breakdown or to exorcise those demons on someone else,
Yes.
even though they do affect every relationship I've ever had. So,
Absolutely. And so we also talked about restructuring your life, and that you mentioned that you can't afford to misstructure at this point. And so what we're doing in essence is we're breaking up all the pathology, and we're going to regroup, and we're heading into panel number 789, which is interconnection, reconnection, which is recoding new information in there, which is really essential to being the creator of part 2 of your life, because we're not the creator of part 1 of our life, but we certainly are the creators of part 2 of our lives, and we're responsible to heal. And I really get it that you've done everything humanly possible to heal.
Absolutely.
And
you
so
have.
so we're getting kind of radical on this. Not kind of, but I take a very radical approach, and I'm just very thankful that people like Dana, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, from anxiety.org, will write about this to educate people that really what's at stake here is the emotional self, and the damage is in the amygdala, which is the emotional brain, and all the cognitive and behavioral therapy in the world will not release the poison. And there's a place for cognitive, behavioral, there's a place for this, but unless this poison is released, we're not really tapping into the primal wounds of childhood, and that's why this process is so essential.
And we'll never be whole and complete and able to actually finish, because really, as we talk about, it's not how you start that matters in life. It's how you finish, and you want to finish strong. And that's really what this is about. And Dr. Judy really is on the bleeding edge of what she's doing.
Ouch.
Thank you.
My
Well,
pleasure,
thank
Maria.
you,
So
Maria.
to be continued privately tomorrow.
Okay.
Really
Thank you
appreciate it, and I'll talk to you the following week because we're moving
Yes.
into the healing process and
We'll-
reintegrating. Reintegrating.
We will be continuing this next week. For those of you who stay tuned, and hope it's been an amazing and enlightening experience. Has sure for me, and the impact of Dr. Judy's mind map system. So,
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
well,
Good
thank
night.
you, Maria. You take care until.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
And it is because of you.
It is because of me.
Yes. Yes.
Thank
well,
you.
not.
Thank you. My pleasure. I just wanted to say one additional thing is that when the human disconnect goes viral on a global level, what we see is what we're seeing.
Yes.
This disconnect starts with the disconnection between the mother and the infant, and then the disconnect from the self, and then the disconnect from our families, and our disconnect from our community, and then it virals out into global disconnect.
Absolutely, it does, and we really
Okay.
are. And Judy and I both believe we are more disconnected as individuals as well as a planet than ever. And it really starts at a micro level and ends up at a macro level, which is where we're going. I mean, just all you got to do is read a newspaper, turn on the news, and realize all the challenges that are going on in the world as a result of disconnect.
Yes.
And
it all starts
epidemic.
with mother-infant
It's
disconnect.
epidemic.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. So now we're going to shrink the tune. Song by Kelly Clarkson. Because of you, I will not make the same mistake that you did. I will not let myself cause my heart so much misery. I will not break the way you did. You fell so hard. I've learned the hard way to never let it get that far.
Okay, so we're shrinking the tune through the lens of the mind map, talking about panel 6, breakdown, breakthrough, and I want to point out that we've talked much about the multi-generational transmission process
Yeah, we
and
have.
how we inherit pathology from our parents. So think about this as a conversation between a daughter and a mother, or a son and a mother, or primary caregiver, and saying, look, I will not make the same mistakes that you did. I cannot let myself cause my heart so much misery. So there's an honesty here. There's a kind of a truth conversation going on in this song, isn't there?
Yes, there is. So, and because of you, I will never stray too far from the sidewalk. Because of you, I've learned to play on the safe side so I don't get hurt. Because of you, I find it hard to trust not only me, but everyone around me. Because of you, I am afraid.
This is so beautiful in the context of what we're talking about. She's talking about how she lives in an unsafe world. So she never developed trust in the world, so she can't stray too far from the sidewalk. She's got to stay close to her mother's side because her mother obviously didn't have enough of a secure attachment between her child to make it safe for her to venture out. So now she feels that she can easily get hurt and she cannot trust, and she lives in fear and anxiety.
And I lose my way, and it's not too long before you point it out. I cannot cry because I know that's weakness in your eyes. I am forced to fake a smile, a laugh every day of my life. My heart can't possibly break when it wasn't even whole to start with.
So here she's talking about, she's talking about how dangerous it is to express her emotion. She can't even cry. And she's so scared that if she loses her way, her mother's going to criticize her. And so she's forced to fake a smile, meaning she's in a hostage situation. She can't confront her mother and say, this is not okay. And my heart can't possibly break when it wasn't even whole to start with. Wow, is that a defense mechanism?
That's just such a powerful statement.
Yeah.
I watched you die. I heard you cry every night in your sleep. I was so young. You should have known better than to lean on me. You never thought of anyone else. You just saw your pain. And now I cry in the middle of the night for the same damn thing.
So here we've got codependency, right? The mother is leaning on her daughter, and this is heavy on her. So I cry in the middle of the night, meaning she can't stand the pressure. She can't stand the pressure of, it's supposed to be the opposite. That she's talking about
the roles
hearing
are
her
reversed.
cry, or her mother cry every night. Well, she's the kid,
Right. Roles reversed.
right?
Because of you, I try my hardest just to forget everything. Because of you, I don't know how to let anyone else in. Because of you, I'm ashamed of my life because it's empty. Because of you, I am afraid. Because of you, because of you.
So the theme here of being ashamed because of the fact that she blames herself. She's ashamed that she cannot soothe herself. She cannot rescue herself, and then she has no place to put it because she doesn't have an empathic connection of being heard. So she lives in fear and emptiness, and as we talked about, she's in the double dungeon because she can't reach for her mother
Nor her father. Right.
and then within she feels empty, and then she's ashamed of herself on top of it. So can you see the pressure? She can't reach for mom, she can't reach for dad, she can't reach inside, and she's ashamed
helpless.
that she can't do anything about it.
she's helpless.
Of course, she's blaming herself, and this is all because of you.
Because of you. And that is the song Because of You by Kelly Clarkson, one of Judy's favorite songs.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been listening to Dr. Judy WTF with your host, Walt Lusk. Next week, we'll be continuing our series with Maria and Dr. Judy, Dr. Judy Rosenberg. You can reach us at info, at drjudy.wtf.com. And you can pull our shows at Stitcher, iTunes, and, of course, at ubnradio.com as well. So thanks for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. And until next time, God bless everyone. And now we're going to play Because of You.